Okay, just quickly about who HID Global is. You'll probably recognise us mostly if you have an access control card to get into your building. The HID brand for access control is, we're in probably about 80% of the top 2,000 corporate companies worldwide. From the access control industry, HID bought up RFID transponder manufacturing companies, including Sokimat, which was a Swiss-based company that did the first glass microchips that we inject into our pets and animals today. An interesting point about Sokimat, when the first silicon chip for RFID was invented, they needed to find a company that had the experience and to wind very precise coils of wire and attach them to a microchip. So they went to the Swiss watchmakers, and that's where Sokimat started. And today we have a huge range of RFID transponders, from tiny little glass tags through to doing your passports and things under the brand HID Global. A few facts about the company there. I won't go through it in detail and get more into the gritty. So who are we? We're a trusted source of secure identity solutions. Innovation leadership, worldwide resources, global quality that you'd expect from a company with €30 billion ASSA ABLOY backed company. And we, of course, the industry expertise has been through a variety of acquisitions. So there's two sides of the business. There's the identity and access management, and then there's the identification technologies. Identity access management is all the access control stuff that we're famous for. The identification technologies is more the OEM business, the glass tags and things where you don't see HID brand. And we do millions of RFID tags that are going into waste bins all around the world, and we've been doing this for many, many years. So this is our global presence. The manufacturing of is in Johor Bahru. We have a fully automated production facility. So most of our tags, so we still have the original Swiss engineering and where the original glass tags were made in Switzerland. That's our R&D centre. So we have Swiss engineering, and then we have our low-cost manufacturing in Malaysia. So everything's developed, the tags and the way we manufacture them in Switzerland, and then we export it to Malaysia to go into mass production, which allows us to be very competitive. Of course, what you'd expect, ISO certification of all facilities, this type of thing. So just honing in on the identification technologies business, there's three key areas: industry and logistics. So asset tracking and logistics, waste managers is a big segment for us, automation, medical and health, returnable transport items, tracking important things like beer kegs, gas cylinders, this sort of thing. And laundry, linen from hotels and this type of thing have RFID tags on it, so that the hotel or the hospital can make sure that they're getting value for money from their laundering service and their right clothes and their right linen back, and not mixed up with other hotels or other hospitals. So RFID, we'll just go into a little bit of the basics. We have active tags and passive tags. Active tags have a battery or an external power, like a cell phone. They have high operating range and can include complex sensors, like for temperature, ambient light, vibration, this sort of thing. They're more expensive than passive tags, obviously, and they need maintenance and batteries and that type of thing. Passive tags, and typically the tags that we're using in the waste industry, they are passive. They have no battery. They don't require any maintenance. They're cheaper and more robust, and all the tags that we're offering in the waste market today are passive tags. Essentially what they're doing is they're getting the energy from the reader that's installed in the truck or on a building or wherever it is. It emits the radio waves. I've got a few more slides to explain this. So we've also got a number of different technologies that have been in the market. Low frequency was one of the earlier technologies adopted. It's based on an inductive coupling. So essentially what we have is the reader putting out the wave, the electromagnetic wave, that induces a current in the coil. As the current is induced in the coil, it powers up the chip. The chip starts to modulate, and the reader is sensing that modulation and interpreting that as data, typically a unique identification, or in the more complex RFID chips, we can support algorithms and other things for encryption. If you're using a pay pass today, that's not low frequency, that's high frequency, which is, it supports greater amounts of data at a greater speed, and we can support encryption algorithms, this type of thing. High frequency is typically used for your security applications. Typically it's a very short distance governed by the ISO specifications, and you'll see that in your passports. It's the same technology that we're using for your PayPass, MasterCard cards, this type of thing today, and access control. Then we go to UHF. UHF over the last 10 years has really gained a lot of popularity. That's where a lot of investment has been done for supply chain logistics operations. With UHF, we've got a very fast communication speed. We can also communicate with tags at a greater distance. Supporting anti-collision, which enables us to read many tags at once. The waste management in Australia tends to be dominating now in UHF technology, taking advantage of the developments in the reader technology and also the greater distances, because typically we use sidearm lift trucks, and being able to put one reader in the top rather than down on the reader antennas down on the sidearm enables less maintenance of cables and that type of thing when you're doing thousands of lifts a day in a bin, all these components wear. And it also is less sensitive to the orientation of the bin. I'll have a few slides on that later as well. So the main criteria for frequency selection, there's no single frequency able to fulfil all the requirements of an application. Standards and regulations need to be considered. There is no particular standard in Australia. There are in Europe, and those standards were set up around low frequency many, many years ago. So typically when we look at a new application, we'll look at read range required, the cost of the tags, the existing know-how, integration, environmental conditions such as proximity to metal, water and these type of things, and also the memory capacity and read-write speed that needs to be fulfilled. These are just some of the standards in relation to low frequency. You can see there's animal identification. In Australia, it's mandatory to put an RFID tag on every cow. For sheep, it's just gone mandatory in Victoria. And of course for cats and dogs, generally in most states, it's mandatory to have your dog microchipped. So drilling down on why you use RFID in the waste management industry, essentially we're optimising efficiency and costs through identification. So an RFID tag allows the bin to be automatically identified to a location and a household or a ratepayer, depending on the system software and how it's set up. Through the identification, a number of actions can be taken, including recording the time and date of pickup. So if one of a resident calls the council and says, my bins weren't picked up this morning, I say, well, that's funny, your neighbour's was at 8:15 a.m. and the person on the other side of the street at 8:16 a.m. So maybe the bin wasn't visible. You could also capture a contamination event. The trucks can be fitted out with a camera. It can identify the bin as there's the rubbish is falling out. So if it's supposed to be bottles and plastics and there's a load of nappies there, the truck driver on his driver console can identify that bin and flag that to the council, who can send out a letter to the ratepayer or the person that lives at that address and ask them kindly clean up your act. It's costing the environment and your fellow ratepayers money every time we have to send a truckload of bottles to landfill. So I'd like to say, automate letters to ratepayers to improve or reward cycling efforts. I don't think punishment works in this case. Also generate billing, pay per use. There have been a lot of billing in Europe as pay by weight. I'm not sure if that will work in Australia. With our culture, I think most people would be filling up their neighbour's bin pretty quickly. But in any case, certainly when you're pay by use, for example, if you have green waste, and every time you put your green waste bin out, the council can record that you did put the bin out that week, and only be billed on a pay per use basis may work in some regions. Also, recording missed pickups, recording damage bin in wrong location. One thing that I haven't mentioned here, the bin from Bunnings, which I thought about the other day. Obviously that bin is, someone's bought a bin and using 2 bins and doubling up on their waste each week, maybe because they've got a home business or something like that. It's not fair for all the ratepayers to pay for that. Recording a bin weight, like I said, it can be done in some companies. Automate inventory and life cycle processes. So if a bin's missing wheels or it's missing a lid, again, these things can be recorded at the time the bin's being picked up, or if a ranger happens to be using a handheld reader on the street and wants to record an event or something that needs maintenance. And route optimisation for the trucking company doing the collection. So typically what you see in a system, you've got the driver interface, which is a screen and a tablet. So it's an onboard computer. You'll have GPRS for the communications, or 3G today, GPS, a camera, reader, antenna. You can see the UHF antenna there at the top of the truck. So the chute, and arm lift sensor. And of course the back office system management software or the user interface that either the collection contractor is managing, or indeed the council can manage itself as well, depending on how they structure the solution. At HID Global, we manufacture RFID tags. I can recommend to you companies that provide the complete system and software for this. There's a number of companies in Australia providing that service. And of course, some of them are here today, 3Logics and AMCS in particular. So industrial weight systems, here we're using RFID tags that give a longer read distance. There's a number of our tags have been out in the field for many years in Australia for this purpose, with some of our customers, JJ Richards and Bingos. There's a few of them that are using HID tags today and have done so for some time. Just a quick example of the data flow. And this is typically what the user interface might look at. So central hosting for the application service providing, bin management, vehicle monitoring, route planning and visualisation, and of course the invoicing if you have it attached to a billing system. These are a bunch of the different types of tags. The one on the furthest on your left is typically what's used in the commercial and residential bins. Those blue ones in the middle are typically used on skips. And we've had a number of other tags that are suited to other applications for in-waste management that are there. With the bin tags, there's a variety of different tags. We've put them all in different colours now because quite often different systems integrators have used different technologies, whether it be low frequency or UHF. In Australia, most of it's UHF, but there are still some sites out there that we are using the low frequency technology. So we differentiate by colour because it's painful taking phone calls that your tags don't work, and in fact it's the wrong black tag with the wrong technology inside, and it can't work with it. if it's put in the wrong, combined with the wrong reader. Epoxy UHF tags, another example. This type of tag will read up to 8 metres in distance. It can be used in retrofitting bins. This inline ultra tag, the series has been used on anything from coal carriages to mini skip bins to beer kegs, gas cylinders, all these type of things. This type of tag, it's actually an interesting project. It's got a 3D antenna, so it's not very sensitive to the reader. And when we're doing beer keg projects, we can read 840 beer kegs going through a portal out of a distribution centre on the back of a truck. Of course, the truck has to be one of those side curtain trucks, not a metal curtain. But it's the utopia for a Lion Nathan or companies like that want to keep track of all their beer kegs, because they quite often end up in as barbecues or at the metal recycling. There, I've got a picture of it. This is typically the read distance that you'll get from a tag and the type of testing that we do to analyse to make sure that it's fit for purpose for the application. And you can see there you're getting read distances of up to 8 metres on a variety of different metal. It's independent of what it's been put on. Okay. There's just a variety of different tags that are used for different things, whether it's sealing. These bin tags all fit into a standard into a standard domestic bin of the right variety of. They all have that same pot there to fit the tag.